Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Oracle Maxymiser. My name is Erin Rolls, and I will be your host today. I work on the marketing team here at Relationship One, and I am really excited to be a part of today's session. I'm pleased to introduce our speakers today. First, we have Mike Bernard. Mike is the Vice President of Services here at Relationship One. He is actually the one responsible for the consulting organization that delivers the spectacular services to all of you. I asked Mike to present his point of view on the acquisition of Maxymiser by Oracle because of his genuine excitement about the tool being a part of the OMC family. He's spent years running digital marketing for SaaS companies prior to being with Relationship One, and with that experience, I did feel it was best for him to deliver this presentation. Also joining us today is Bo Landsman. Bo is a senior solutions consultant for Oracle Maxymiser. Basically, he knows his stuff more than anyone else on the planet. He's joined us today to give us an overview of Maxymiser testing, optimization, and personalization campaigns. We're excited because he's also going to provide a live demonstration of the platform, and he's going to stick around at the end of the webinar to answer any questions you may have about the platform. I have a couple housekeeping items to cover quickly before we get started. First, we'd love to hear from you during today's presentation. By default, you are all on mute, so please feel free to send questions or comments via the chat option, and we'll take the time at the end of the webinar to answer all questions. Also, if at any point during the presentation you decide that you'd like to schedule time to get more into the nitty-gritty of the tool, please let me know via the chat option, and we'll be sure to make that happen. Lastly, we are recording today's session, and it will be available on demand should you want to share it with any of your team members. Alrighty, for those of you who are just joining today, this is a session on Oracle Maxymiser presented by Mike Bernard and Bo Landsman. Let's get started by filling everybody in. Mike, why are we here today talking to our customers about Oracle Maxymiser?
Great question, Erin, and thank you so much for everyone on the phone. It's great to be able to get a chance to talk to you, even if it's maybe a little bit one-sided. There's a few reasons why I'm really excited about this acquisition from Oracle. The first one is sort of related to my story. So prior to coming to Relationship One, I was running marketing operations and demand generation and most of the digital marketing efforts for a software company based out of the Twin Cities here. And so I had all the Eloqua stuff that was under me, in addition to overseeing our CRM administrator and a few content people and our website person. And so part of my job was to make sure that all of our digital properties performed the way that we needed them to be able to fill up the pipeline and ultimately sell software to folks. And in that portion of it that was the website part was always kind of a challenge to be able to think through what we want our website to look like and how we want it to act and all that kind of stuff, only to roll it out there to do some minor A/B testing and kind of more hope that you've kind of got it dialed in rather than having something that tells you definitively like, yes, this is working better than the other way. So for me personally, as someone who is a digital marketer at heart, to be able to have a tool that really allows you to have a scientific approach to how you're personalizing your website and your digital properties would have been game-changing for me. It really would have complemented what we were doing in the other areas of digital marketing very nicely. The second reason why I'm really excited about Maxymiser is because of our clients. I love our clients. Our clients really get me jazzed up. The work that all of you guys do and all of our other clients do is super exciting to me to hear about. And some of our clients have been using Maxymiser for a bit now and have been really finding great success with it. They've had dramatic improvements in the way that their website is converting. And so anytime I get to hear a story like that about a success story from one of our clients, it gets me really excited. And I guess the final thing is, in some ways I think Maxymiser is a lot like Eloqua, in the sense that it's an extremely powerful tool, but at its core, it's easy to use. So just like you can figure out how to set up a campaign in Eloqua, really, very quickly if you're doing, emails and landing pages and doing the campaign canvas, to get going with Maxymiser to do sort of the basic stuff is easy, but with that you also have the complexity to grow and to scale to basically do anything that you can think of. And so I think it complements Eloqua really well in terms of how people are thinking about their digital marketing efforts. And so one of the things that I've been hearing a lot about actually is this term customer experience optimization. And it's a term that actually makes a lot of sense to me. It's this idea of how do we optimize our marketing efforts to deliver a personalized customer experience for clients or prospects. It's kind of what we've been doing, but it's just finally been given a name as people have entered into this space. And just to give you a little bit of a background around this, as digital marketers and primarily as Eloqua folks, I think we spend a lot of time trying to personalize our email campaigns. We add field merges in, we're using things like dynamic content, and we're doing A/B testing, and we're doing all of this stuff to try to fill up the top of the funnel. But then at the end of the day, we're directing people to go to a rather generic and static website. And so lots of effort going into creating great content, and then putting personas in place to change out that stuff, and then personalize your email. And then you send someone to a web property that doesn't really have that level of effort put into it. And so this quote here from Forrester I think was really telling, in that we're spending a lot of money on the top of the funnel stuff and spending very little money on the how do you get people to actually convert, to fill that form out, to raise that hand, to buy a product, whatever it is. And as a result of that, it ends up creating a web experience that has lower level relevance for people, and it gives them a poor experience. And it's not really something that we want to do, and it's not complementing all of the efforts that we're doing on the demand generation side. And I think intrinsically we all know this, right? So most of everyone, not just me, not you guys on the phone, everyone knows that when it comes to customer experience, it's a big part of what people do in terms of their purchasing decision. So if you've had a really great experience with an organization or with a company in the past, you're probably more likely to go back to them in the future. If you've had a really awful experience with them, there's no way you're going to ever go back and do business with them. And at the end of the day, most people are willing to pay more money to have a better customer experience. And if you think about it, this is basically Apple's entire business model. Is there a fundamental difference between a Mac and a Windows-based machine in terms of what it does? Not really, no. But once you get a Mac, you realize that the user experience is so much better and so much more having that customer experience taken into account in the design, that you're willing to pay more money for it, to the fact that you would never imagine going back to a Windows machine after you switch to a Mac. And so you're paying more money for that better customer experience. And we know this at our core because we do this kind of stuff all the time. And I think if we think about the C-level and our marketing executives, they're wary of this too. They know that creating a customer experience that is tailored and personalized and on point with what people are looking for is incredibly valuable. But unfortunately, according to some of the research that Forbes has done, we as marketers are not really doing a great job of implementing that vision that our marketing leadership has. And so we need to find better ways to personalize that experience on the down funnel side of the equation, and that matches or mirrors what we're doing on the top of the funnel stuff. And I threw this picture in here. I think you've probably seen it. It's been around for a few years there. But what I love about this is this idea of, if you look at the concrete walkway there, I think this is a lot of the way that we as marketers envision someone going down a nurture path, as we think through what's the best way to get someone from point A to point B. And in doing so, we create this really nice path that's fairly linear, and in reality, at the end of the day, sometimes people want to go their own direction. They want to skip ahead. They want to spend more time in a certain area. They want to have content that is tailored to exactly what they're looking for. And so you get this idea that we spend all this time and effort building a pathway that at the end of the day is not necessarily delivering the customer experience that people are looking for. And so you get people kind of walking across the grass sort of thing. So that's sort of like the background, or the reason why this focus on customer experience is so important and so necessary, because we are spending a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort to create this at the top of the funnel, and we need to be thinking down funnel as well, how we can do that. So that kind of brings me to the question of, what is Maxymiser? Well, Maxymiser is a platform that helps brands optimize their experience for visitors that uses some scientific methods there to increase conversions across your different channels and to do this at a massive scale. So it's not just A/B testing anymore. It's A, B, C, D, E, F, G testing, and for every single person, not just one static experience is A and one static is B. It really is dynamic in the ability to change out content and personalize that web experience for people. And I'll be totally honest with you guys. Prior to Eloqua purchasing Maxymiser, I had not heard of Maxymiser. And I think that's probably because Maxymiser was founded in Europe. And so over here in the US, we hadn't heard of it, but as much as some of the other US-based companies. But Maxymiser really is the leader in the space when it comes to this idea of testing, targeting, and optimization. And they've been doing it for quite a while now and have a whole bunch of clients who have really used this tool to find great success with their business. And if we look at Forrester, they always do their wave reports here. And so as of last year, end of last year, their Maxymiser was really ranked the best of the best of the best when it came to an enterprise level tool for being able to do this personalization on your website. And at the core, Maxymiser really is three basic platforms. Now there are different modules that you can purchase within the thing, but it really comes down to testing. So how do you take this guesswork out of the A versus B, and then the insights that go along with that testing. So how do we know that option C is better than option A? Well, you need to have a robust reporting platform and the analytics that go around that help you be able to make those decisions. And then with that, being able to deliver that personalization. And one of the things that I really like about Maxymiser is, and Bo will talk about this a little bit more, but all of this gets deployed by implementing one little piece of JavaScript on the header area of your website. So there's not massive development efforts that are needed to personalize these web pages. And the core of Maxymiser is all about taking real-time data. And that could be coming from your website or from mobile devices or social media or a DMP or wherever it is that data is being collected, and pumping that into Maxymiser to be able to use some of these things like the multivariate testing, A/B testing, gain customer insight, and then ultimately create a targeted experience for people across the different platforms where they're going to be checking out your digital properties there. And Maxymiser's been doing this for a lot of people. They have over 340 enterprise clients. We pulled out just a few of them here on our slide that are focused on primarily B2B. There's a couple of B2C on there as well. But I know for us, we're working with Ricoh, VMware, and General Mills as clients, and so it makes me very happy to see some of our clients listed on there as people who are already getting the benefit from Maxymiser. And with that, I will turn things over to Bo to give you guys a demonstration of how Maxymiser works and how cool it is to be able to do this kind of stuff with your website. So Bo, take it away.
Thank you, Mark. So before I go into a live demonstration, I just want to cover a few slides so that everyone can get a basic understanding of functionality and architecture as an overview of Maxymiser. So as Mike mentioned, how it works is a single line of JavaScript. Now that single line of JavaScript is loaded synchronously in the head node across your site. Now we'll touch on what that means to be loading synchronously across the head. But for starters, let's just say it allows Maxymiser to be a flicker-free solution in that we can auto-inject any styles to hide elements that we're going to manipulate as those elements are loading and then show them immediately as they load. That single line of JavaScript implements a static library. Now that static library then makes a quick call to Maxymiser's content generator servers. These are owned and operated servers by Maxymiser, data and geo-redundant. And what they do is they evaluate the visitor profile. Now that's something that Mike was touching on a moment ago. But the visitor profile is actually data sources from disparate locations, whether it be real-time web data such as browsing behavior across the site, whether it be identification from an email campaign, whether it be Eloqua or Responses, or even attributes from that campaign. So Eloqua could be identifying to Maxymiser that they're currently inside of a particular email campaign, or it could even be specifying the industry that this visitor happens to be a part of. They could be attributes from a DMP such as BlueKai, or even CRM imported data on your visitors. Now that data is all sent into that Maxymiser visitor profile, in which these are all collected together and evaluated in real time using the Maxymiser decision engine, which determines should this visitor be in a testing campaign, a data collection customer insight campaign, or a personalization experience, and then delivers those back into the visitor's device. Now, in addition to evaluating that visitor profile, it's also evaluating the state of the page that they're on. Now, that's either done by URL or even virtual URL. So if you have any sites that have single page applications, any content being loaded in by, say, Angular or Ajax, that dynamic content can then trigger a campaign mid-page. So it doesn't need to be just on a particular URL. It could be on a state of your single page applications. Now, because we are loading synchronously, that is going to draw a red flag for any technology person in the room that's going to say, hey, you want to load synchronously, that's going to increase latency onto my site. And that's absolutely true. Like any synchronously loading script, Maxymiser will add latency. But Maxymizers recognize this from the beginning, and we know that in order to ensure that our customers don't have any impact to their visitor experience, we need to do 24/7, 365 server-side application monitoring. And we do that so that we ensure that the latency of our content from our content generator servers is as small as possible. And it's with this 24/7, 365 monitoring, as well as an efficiently bundled response of campaign content to our visitors, that Maxymiser is allowed to recognize quarter after quarter inside of our reports, where we use a web crawler server-side application script called Gomez that checks not just Maxymiser latency, but also our competitors' latency as well. And we recognize that quarter after quarter, we're about 1/5 of the latency of our closest competitors and about 1/10 of the latency introduction from our third closest competitor. As mentioned, we own data centers worldwide. We also do load balancing automatically over SSL. We're completely agnostic to whether you're on multiple subdomains across your site you're testing, or SSL or non-SSL pages. It's always still the same single line of JavaScript. Our SSL certificates are also issued independently from Maxymiser content generator servers to Akamai, with which our network is delivered. Of course, the largest, most secure network worldwide, and Akamai then delivers SSL certificates to the end visitor. There's never going to be an interruption of your secure page service or any interruption to your service, to your site as well. So let's go into a live demonstration. What we're seeing right now is the dashboard from when you first enter the Maxymiser account. And it is a dynamic dashboard, and the purpose being we want to allow our visitors and our users to rapidly build tests. And we feel that the only way you're really going to gain the most insight is if you're building as many tests as the throughput will allow for your site. And so you're going to quickly develop these tests, and you're going to want to sort through them quickly as well. So you can quickly sort through any campaigns that are currently live or implementing or paused, or see all of them at the same time, as well as the ability to quickly search through any campaigns. So if I want to see all the campaigns that have the name DuPont, if I've created a nomenclature where I'm saying, well, the primary or subdomain is going to be a part of the naming convention, then I can just quickly search for it right here and see that I have 3 campaigns associated with it. The DuPont Home campaign, a DuPont Home redirect campaign, and a DuPont Phones Home test. Now you'll also see that these 2 are wrapped inside of a DuPont Home master. And I'll touch up on what that means in just a moment. But again, that's for the validity of your results to allow your campaigns to run mutually exclusive of one another, which is a really big problem in the industry outside of Maxymiser. And I'll touch up on what that means again in just a moment. For now, let's talk about what it looks like to create a new campaign. With the click of New Campaign, you'll see that I have my visual campaign builder up here on the top right, very similar to other testing solutions. It is a WYSIWYG editor in which we can do all of our testing and debugging, as well as even begin our QA process. We also have a very code-driven power user interface right here. You also see it has the ability to set up these what are called master campaigns. Now there's a really big problem in the industry, and I'll touch up on it right now actually with a swimming example. So the idea being, how do you attribute the KPIs to your results when you have multiple tests running concurrently? So let's talk about swimming. So if you're swimming and you're in a pool and you have a lot of people in that pool, the pool has your visitors inside of it, and you have KPIs for those visitors to the pool, such as the number of laps they complete and the speed of the laps of their completion. So you can run some tests to see if you can speed up their swimming. The test one I want to introduce, the first test hypothesis, is that if I throw pool noodles into the water, that's going to help them complete the laps, hopefully just the younger users of the pool. So we're going to throw some pool noodles in, and maybe that's going to help some visitors. And we'll see if overall that's increased the speed or decreased the speed of visitors completing their laps and the number of laps they're completing. Now over time, I've introduced a second test hypothesis that if I shout at my swimmers, that's going to speed some of them up as well. So I'll introduce this next test, in which we have a man in the bottom right-hand corner yelling at the people in the pool to swim faster. Now, both of these tests running concurrently, you won't actually know which test was influencing which visitor. So the solution to this is to have your visitors have swimming lanes so that the experience for each swimmer in the pool is actually mutually exclusive from one another. So you have some visitors experiencing pool noodles given to them, and some visitors having someone shout at them to complete their laps faster. And that's the master campaign, which you see set up right here. The idea being the DuPont home test is going to be different from the DuPont home redirect test. Maybe they were implemented at 2 different periods of time. And the redirect test you certainly don't want to run at the same time as the DuPont home test, because if they were entered into both, in addition to being redirected once they get to the home page, no matter what variations of content they might have seen on that home page, it therefore invalidates it. But in addition to that, you want to make sure they were mutually exclusive for not just this actual conflict of how they function, but also for the attribution of their KPIs. And so that allows you to have these master campaigns to have your campaigns run mutually exclusive inside of Maxymiser. Now once we click on Use Visual Campaign Builder, we'll get to our top-down view of building our campaign, which we can give our test a name. We can specify the type of test, whether it be an A/B or a multivariate test. Now Maxymizer's multivariate tests are a little bit different from the rest of the industry. We're also doing full statistical analysis on the combination of all variants. So we're going to be able to see, like all of our competitors, who are your winning combinations for either all traffic or segments or microsegments of traffic. But we're also doing a statistical analysis on each individual element. That is, for each variant per element in the multivariate test, we're doing a separate A/B test. Think about an A/B test within an A/B test. That's our Maxymizer's multivariate testing, and that allows you to see not just your winning combinations, but also those winning variants per element. So in the scenarios in which you don't come up with a statistical winner for all traffic, well, you might find that there's an individual element variant that was driving statistical significance of a win independent of the experiences it was delivered with. And I'll show you reports that exemplify that in just a moment. You can also specify the device of the type you want to target. So whether it be desktop and all devices, tablet, and or phone devices, you can actually build your campaign inside of an emulator of that device. And you'll actually see it starts you off in the phone device, gives you an emulator of an iPhone, and you can even toggle between the different device types, change your custom sizes or screen resolution, or even the user agent string with which you want to build your campaign for. You can also extend an existing campaign and open it right here. So you can see we're working on that DuPont homepage test, and you'll see the major steps to complete in order to build this test out. Pages refers to the URL or set of URLs with which this campaign is going to exist on. This could be an inclusive set of URLs, an exclusive set of URLs. You can use regular expression matching, substring matching, or even behavioral criteria to enter a visitor into a test. It can be completely custom. The content section is where in an A/B test you simply create variations of the page or pages, and in a multivariate test such as this one, you define elements and then the variations of those elements. The action section is where you can take any pre-existing KPIs defined inside of the Maxymiser platform and assign those as success metrics for your campaign, or create new success metrics for the campaign on the fly that will then be available for use for all future campaigns. The targeting section refers to two things, campaign targeting and content targeting, where campaign targeting is who will be entered into this campaign, who's available to be filtered in or out of it, and then content targeting, which is a means of personalizing the campaign content such that you reduce the set of permutations for a segment or microsegment of that traffic and personalize those experiences for them, and recognizing in the ways that you did not know whether they achieve up with, whether they are doing positively or negatively for those other variations. And finally, to review and publish, where based on your user role, with which Maxymiser has user roles to assign within your entire company's infrastructure, you can have publish rights access and publish your campaign immediately or on a schedule for seasonal campaigns, as well as read-write access for non-publishers. They can make changes to the campaign and then notify the publisher of the changes they've made. The publisher will then receive an email and go through a detailed change log of all of those changes and approve or disapprove of them. So let me show you briefly what the content section looks like and some of the things we can do inside of it. In the top left corner, you'll see the element box. In the element box, I can actually look at all the elements I've already defined. I can define more by the plus button or the define button and simply select an element to define. Per each one, you'll see if I've made any variations of it. Now the approach image, I have not made a variation of yet. For the sub-hero image, I've actually swapped out the HTML to promote the Corian solid surfaces. Now this is HTML I took from the Corian page. This is the #1 keyword search for DuPont after DuPont itself. That is, this is probably the product that I was highly promoting right now. So with knowledge that many people that are coming to DuPont are likely looking for Corian product as well, well, let's see what that promotion does for those new visitors and returning visitors across the site. Perhaps there's a larger percentage of them that are actually going to be interested in this Corian than the default permutation, which is simply to say that you're powering your innovation through science. And finally, we have an extra layered section. And I'll get into what we're going to do with that in just a moment. But what we're actually going to be using as a preview, we're going to be using what's called Maxengage, a means of creating new layered content on top of the page. Let's start with our approach image. Now the idea here, I just simply want to create a new variation of content. Now this is an image, so I'm just going to do a quick image swap. I'll select the image. You'll see the changes I can do to any of the pieces of content that I'm selecting. I can change its position, resize elements, change their z-index, hide, delete elements, insert new HTML above or below pieces of content, insert new images above or below, or even change the existing image. When I'm changing an image out, I can upload new content from my machine. I can specify a URL from my CMS, or I can select it from the content manager if I've uploaded it previously, and then that content is going to be stored on the Maxymiser server, on our content generator servers, and checked for latency like all other content from our content generators. So you can see I've swapped it out simply with the DuPont chemical plant. And maybe that very explicit appearance of the DuPont is going to resonate strongly with some visitors. Now let's move to our extra layers. So I mentioned extra layers, we're going to be using Maxengage. Now Maxengage has two means of implementing it. We can use it to create light boxes, or we can actually use it to create what are called call-outs. Think of them as tooltips. So I can select an object, select Maxengage to be associated with it, and create an attached call-out to be associated with it. So if I want to make sure that visitors see an extra bit of text when they hover over a specific element, I'll just change my display logic to be on mouse hover over, and then it would create this pop-up in which I can edit this text like any other. But in this case, I want to create a pop-up. So I'm going to create a light box. And again, we have our display logic. Now the display logic for pop-ups is pretty powerful. You can use it to exchange other products like Bounce Exchange or Optimonk, a lot of tools that are built out separately. While useful, you can do all of those things inside of Maxymiser for pop-ups and bounce prevention pop-ups. In addition to that, you can duplicate these pop-ups and test various copy and design inside of them. So not only will you be doing an A/B test of whether the pop-up worked or not, you'll be able to actually recognize what's the best pop-up copy, content, design for segments and microsegments of your traffic. Now for display logic, you can have it be on page load. It could be on a timer sitting idle for visitors, viewport mouse out, which is very powerful for bounce prevention, as the mouse leaves the viewable area to instigate the pop-up. And of course, you could also specify custom JavaScript events. So Maxymiser, by loading synchronously in the head of the site, actually allows us, through the Maxymiser user interface, to inject more code if we wish. So if we want to inject a library through the user interface, which tracks the mouse velocity and vector towards the close button, I would have it execute a custom event, call it about to bounce. That would then also instigate this pop-up. I can also specify my close logic and frequency, so I don't pester my visitors more than X number of times per hour, day, week, month, session, or campaign. And once this Lightbox content is here, I can edit it like any other content on the page. I can change it to text. I can use a guided move and shift positions. I could insert images or HTML, or I could even empty all of the content and insert HTML from scratch if I have a copy or designer that has given me some HTML to drop in that's styled more specifically to the page. So here we have a bounce prevention quick links pop-up. Name it accordingly, and I would create a new variation of that content. So now, as the campaign creator, I should do my due diligence and preview the content code, preview the permutations of the campaign, prior to handing them off to my dev and QA team. So you'll see here now, I can select various experiences, different permutations of the campaign. I can then hand off unique preview link URLs of each of these experiences and give those to my dev and QA team that do not have Maxymiser logins. If you do have a Maxymiser login, once you finish that basic QA test for all operating systems and browsers you're concerned with for permutation, and it looks right, you want to make sure that it functions correctly. You'll be using the QA tool, and I'll touch on that in just a moment. Let's move to the action section. As I mentioned, this is where you can take any pre-existing KPIs, such as I have selected the information request completion, which is noting that the information request occurred, and then set that as our primary metric of success. I can always create multiple metrics of success. So if the visitor has a login and they complete their login process, I'm going to use that as a secondary measurement of success. And if I just want to make sure that they're surfing around on the site and looking at lots of pages, they're interested, they're more engaged with the site, I'll create a new page view action for all future campaigns to make use of as well. Upon page view, and just specify asterisks for anything I don't care about, such as SSL or not, or www or not. And now I have another secondary metric of success. And these could really be any custom attributes you'd like as well. So if you want to create an action that fires off after the visitor's been sitting idle for 27 seconds and they're a repeat visitor and they've made 5 purchases, you can absolutely use our Power User Interface to create actions for any of these events you'd like. As mentioned, the targeting section is 2 things, campaign and content targeting, where campaign targeting is largely represented inside of the hypothesis itself. So for DuPont, I know that they have a bounce rate of 47%. I want to focus on new visitors. So I'm going to say this campaign, which is built mainly with variations of content that I think are going to have influence on new visitors, I will use that as a part of my hypothesis and set that as the campaign targeting condition. I can also create content targeting rules. So if I want to personalize the campaign experience, or if I've created content that is specifically personal for some segment or microsegment of the traffic, then I'm going to use the attributes that Maxymiser has available, in which we have over 100 out-of-the-box attributes, things like behavior, geolocation, technology of the visitor's machine, time frame with which they've entered into the campaign, the traffic sources, and then, of course, there are custom parameters as well, such as attributes provided by BlueKai, audiences defined in BlueKai, or names of specific Eloqua campaigns. So if I know, for instance, that they're a part of the materials, these visitors are interested in materials, and so I have them on an email list in Eloqua. Eloqua provides that information to Maxymiser, and then it can be used to create a personalized experience for this segment of the traffic. We could also use attributes that Eloqua might have passed in. So for instance, if Eloqua is passing in an industry parameter as a JavaScript variable or a cookie for the Maxymiser page to recognize, and Maxymiser scrapes it, it says, okay, well, if the Eloqua industry provided to Maxymiser is polymers, then certainly always show them the Korean hero in the sub-hero section. And I don't care about these other variations of content. We'll see how they have an influence on those visitors. So now I mentioned the QA tool. It's a very powerful means of completing the QA process. And it allows you to do your testing and debugging on the live site and not being forced to go through a dev and staging server. Again, this is a part of rapid development of your campaigns and the means to reduce the amount of QA and time you're spending in the development and QA of these test campaigns. In sandbox mode, I can test and debug my campaigns without actually publishing the campaign. Once I publish it, I can complete the QA process by simply switching over to the production tab and then viewing my campaign from there. Now, what does the QA tool allow me to do? Number one, I can iterate through the various sub-campaigns of the master. I can iterate through the permutations of an individual test, just like we were doing inside of the visual campaign builder. But in addition to that, if I personalize content for the visitors, I can even falsify various attributes of the visitor. So if I have BlueKai installed and I'm looking at age groups that BlueKai is providing, if I personalize content, maybe made very youthful design and copy for 17 to 25-year-olds, BlueKai is not going to recognize me in that age group. So I want to falsify my attribute for that age group, reload the content, and then verify that the campaign and the personalized content for this specific segment that I've defined is then showing up correctly. I can also look through my timeline to validate that the attributes are firing off at the correct moments, along with the values of those attributes. And I can also look at the site information to see what scripts have been mapped to these pages, as well as what segments any visitor is falling into at any point in time. Now, as far as these targeting is concerned, the campaign targeting, like I mentioned, is largely a part of the test hypothesis itself. And so with that, you can actually remove the guesswork out of it. Now, of course, you might very well have an analytics set in place in which you believe there's a segment of visitors you need to focus on. But you might find segments that you weren't aware of that were actually having a negative uplift towards any of the KPIs you want to set up across your site. So Maxymiser has data collection campaigns, such as our audience insights reports, that allow you to see things like the segment discovery. And with this, you can actually look at all the segments Maxymiser is collecting for any particular page or page set, for any KPI we've set up across the site. And again, this is a data collection campaign not associated with any test campaign. Simply assign the Maxymiser library and the head node across the site, and then you could create a campaign such as the segment discovery report and see how are your visitors segmenting, what's the traffic share for each segment, and what's the uplift per segment versus the average visitor on across the site. So with it, you can either create new hypotheses for your campaigns or validate your existing campaign hypotheses, such as on an insurance site, I might believe that young male visitors do pretty negatively because they think they're going to live forever. Well, I can validate if that's actually the case by saying, well, how are my single visitors doing? Pretty negatively. They make up the largest negative magnitude of my segments of visitors of the largest 10 segments. So I can actually drill multiple layers deep into this report and continue to validate my hypotheses. Well, single male visitors, 36 to 45 makes up a pretty small traffic share. I can assume that even older visitors have an even smaller traffic share and probably still positive uplift. And at the worst case scenario, even if it was a negative uplift, it's such a small traffic share they don't even register on here. So I can assume that the first part, young visitors, young single visitors are doing quite negatively. What is it about these young single visitors? Well, males seem to be doing quite poorly. So I've now just validated my hypothesis that young single males do negatively. So this leads me to come up with my campaign hypothesis that I'm going to make youthful copy and design for the quotes page in order to increase click to buy on that 24% of the traffic that currently has a negative 21% uplift. As far as the content targeting, these could also be a part of the campaign hypotheses, or they can be means of recognizing how best to personalize the content using Maxymiser's predictive modeling tools. Now, since Maxymiser is doing data collection on all visitors, regardless of whether you've segmented those visitors ahead of time or not, you can drill multiple layers deep and find out what was the experience that resonated most strongly with segments and microsegments of the traffic. So for instance, we have our campaign insights as well to our audience insights, in which the campaign insights, while a campaign is running or once it's been paused, you can actually see how is your traffic breaking down by the experience that they were most resonating strongly with. So I can see that the top rank experience is actually the default search box variant in this A/B test. So not a really big, powerful uplift here. I implemented a test, and my winner for all says that the default experience was my winner. So I could call that a loss. But with Maxymiser, I can actually look at the segments and see if there were any segments of traffic that I could best personalize by delivering a separate experience for them. So I can see here my traffic share inside of this test, and the experience that was most preferred inside of that traffic share. We have our visitor age to site, which is new visitors for the first 24 hours, and then there's brand new visitors in the newer return segment, which is a client-side segment that Maxymiser is collecting on the page for those visitors. So I can drill down into each segment and say, all right, well, for this segment that makes up 54% of the traffic, they didn't have the preferred experience of the default, but rather they preferred the help text as their winning experience. Then I can say, all right, well, maybe there's another experience that resonates with these new visitors. I see that the visitors with coupon code 0 that were new make up 52% of the traffic from the 54, and they actually prefer experience 4, which is have a blank search box. And so with this tool, this predictive modeling tool, we can take how the campaign was performing for all of the segments and recognize what those segments were retroactively and determine the winning experience for each individual segment and microsegment of that traffic. You can then take those experiences and implement them as your personalization business rules in the content targeting section. Now, in addition to our audience insight supports, campaign insight supports, we do also have our standard campaign performance reports. That is, a campaign is either currently running or paused, and you want to recognize what the top ranked experience is for the conversion rate of checkout completion is. So we have our top ranked experiences widget right here, with which you can see each experience, the variations that make up each experience, and the uplift for each one. We can also see a view, either cumulative or daily, of how these campaign experiences are performing, as well as various reports, such as our conversion report, or revenue per generation, average order value, revenue per converter, or engagement. And you can see these reports with their statistical data side by side for the various experiences inside of the campaign. Now, in addition to our general campaign performance reports, we have these page widgets, such as your top-ranked experience by conversion. Or we also have funnel widgets. Now, a funnel widget actually allows you to see and compare your control experience versus any other permutations of the campaign and recognize what is the conversion rate for each of these experiences and what's the drop-off from one conversion metric to the next. So this is extremely powerful for multi-step tests, multi-page tests, in which you might be firing off actions throughout various steps of the information completion process. For instance, getting to the information completion page is obviously one action. You want to fire that off. Then entering in a series of valid entries into the forms on the page is going to be a second step. Clicking on the continue to next step is going to be the third page, and then maybe saying, please send me an email is going to be the fourth step, and they've completed that information request process. You can use your funnel report to actually find out where your visitors are dropping off and what the conversion metric is from one step to the next. And as I mentioned, we do have a breakdown by elements, whether it be conversion, revenue, or engagement. Maxymiser is different from the rest of our competitors in that not only are we recognizing those winning experiences for either all segments or subsegments of traffic or microsegments of traffic, but we can also find out on an element level which variant is the winner per element. So you can take your low-hanging fruit here and say, well, I didn't find a winning experience for all traffic. That was a winning combination of the button element variants and this discount element and its variants. You didn't find a winner for all combination, but you might have found a button not shown is driving a 23% uplift with 100% confidence, and certainly enough generations and action count to be considered statistically significant. So therefore, I'm simply going to remove the default losing variant combination and remove it right here from the campaign directly from the report. Of course, I need publish rights access in order to make that change, else that becomes a request to the publish rights user. In addition to the statistical data provided, such as generations, action count, your margin of errors, your conversion rate errors, and your box plot of uplift with confidence, we also have a test design guide to answer the major questions of statistical significance. How long does the campaign need to run before it reaches statistical significance? What are the total number of experiences I can include in my test for the traffic that I'm going to deliver to it and the duration that I wish it to run it for and the confidence level that I want to see? What are the total number of experiences I can have inside of that campaign? As well as what is the minimum detectable uplift for the campaign, for the duration, for the unique number of visitors, and for my default conversion rate and the confidence level that I wish to see inside of this test. We have this test design guide calculator to answer when you reach statistical significance to aid in the understanding of who are your winners and losers, or what are your winning and losing variants and combinations. And with that, I'll take any questions for any.
Sure. I can actually transition over here to our Q&A portion of our webinar today. There we go. Thanks so much, Bo and Mike. Fantastic information. Now comes the tougher part of the webinar, the live Q&A portion. I've been monitoring the chat window, and we have actually quite a few submissions. And while I rattle off some of these questions, if you have any questions now or come up with any questions while we're going through these, please feel free again to add them into the chat as we go through this section. Bo, I've got a couple questions for you here. There's a few people on the call that currently work with a competing product. From your standpoint, what makes Maxymiser different than like an Optimizely or an Adobe Target?
Sure. So I tried to point out a number of differentiators in the industry. So the big one for Optimizely is going to be latency introduction onto the site. So we are about 1/5 of the latency of Optimizely. Now the same goes for true with Adobe Test and Target. We introduced about 1/5 of the latency of Adobe Test and Target as well. And so because we're introducing 1/5 of the latency, we're actually allowing those pages to load much faster. Another major differentiator specifically for Optimizely is the fact that we are having an efficient bundled response of campaign content. So for each individual visitor that comes onto the site, we're not going to be delivering all campaign content and all campaigns for all visitors that are entering into the site. Instead, we're only going to be delivering the campaign content and campaigns that are specifically associated with those visitors, decided in that real-time decision engine of that visitor profile on the Maxymiser content generator servers. For Adobe, we have a number of competitive advantages. There were the master campaigns that I referred to earlier with the swimming example. So Optimizely, Adobe Test and Target, in fact, all of our competitors don't have the ability to assign mutual exclusivity to your campaigns. So what they'll generally do is they'll say, run your campaign serially so that you maintain the validity of your results. And that's absolutely true. You do need to make sure that those campaigns don't overlap. And that's how Maxymiser set up those master campaigns to allow your sub-campaigns to run mutually exclusive of one another. Then, of course, there are the campaign insights. As I was pointing out, you can actually see microsegments of the traffic and what the winning experiences are for each of those microsegments. And those are going to be finding the valuable experiences that Maxymiser finds and floats without needing to pre-segment that traffic. Those are some of the major differentiators. And of course, I'm sure we can send over a list of them if there are particular competitors that someone wants to hear differences of.
Sure, yeah, that'd be great, Bo. I can definitely follow up. Most of the folks on this webinar are Eloqua users. Can you speak to kind of the plans for how Maxymiser will work with Eloqua in the general timeline? And actually, maybe Mike, I will ask you to answer this question.
Sure. Yeah, so technically Oracle has purchased Maxymiser, but the merger hasn't fully been, it's not totally completed yet, and that'll happen next month. And so after that happens, things will progress much faster. At the Modern Marketing Experience at the end of April, it was announced that there is a connection point built between Responsis and Maxymiser right now. And my guess is that as soon as the acquisition is finalized with Oracle, the very next point will be a connecting point with Eloqua. So no exact time frame right now, but I anticipate it being very soon because this is a high priority for the Oracle team.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And while we're kind of speaking about the acquisition, I know that we don't have definite dates around specific transition things, but can you kind of speak at all to what existing Maxymiser customers might hear from Oracle around the transition of support, the transition of account management, that sort of thing?
Sure. Yeah, so if you are currently using Maxymiser, for right now, things will remain the way that they are. But just like when Oracle purchased Eloqua, down the road, things like support and account management and that sort of thing will transition over to the Oracle system. So for right now, things remain as they are, but in the future, And probably within a few months to 6 months after the acquisition is finalized, things will move over to the Oracle support and Oracle account management. And yeah, as you can imagine, it takes a little bit of time to kind of merge those things together. So a little bit of time where it's still in the Maxymiser system, but it'll probably be happening in the fourth quarter.
Okay, awesome. Going back to the technical side of things, Bo, you went through some of the sample data that can be imported into Maxymiser in order to personalize and optimize the experience on the website. Somebody asks, can I specifically import CRM data to supply attributes on my visitors?
Absolutely. Yeah, Maxymiser is a tool called MaxCRM, which allows you to import your visitors' attributes into Maxymiser, so Maxymiser can then test, personalize, and optimize based on those attributes for those visitors. And if they're supplied, again, just like all attributes that Maxymiser is collecting, whether they be the out-of-the-box attributes or those provided from DMPs, email products, or CRM importation, those are collected on your visitors and set as a segment for them, regardless if you've specified personalized content or campaigns for them. So your audience insights reports, your personalization reports, your campaign insights, those are all going to have those segments set up for those visitors and therefore retroactively able to do data mine on them.
Awesome, thank you. Let's see, last question here actually is from me. I see a number of people on the call that work for companies that operate or go to market globally. Is the platform available globally?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. We have data centers worldwide and fully available.
Excellent. I believe that wraps up the questions that have been asked through the chat and mine as well. So that is a wrap. On behalf of Relationship One, we'd like to sincerely thank you for joining us today. We will be following up with each of you to see if you have any other questions or further interest in Oracle Maxymiser. And with that, take care and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, take care, everybody.